We're going to rank dynasty running backs today. Guys like Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Blake Corum, who have made their way into the league, are going to fall into these rankings at some point. So it's time to figure out kind of how the rookie draft and the NFL draft has shaken things up in dynasty. I will warn you right now, there is a ton of variability here between what is like the market consensus rankings and our rankings. Because remember, running back is the most volatile position in dynasty fantasy football. So with that, it's anybody's guess where these guys are going to be ranked a year from now. We're doing this based on our own opinion. And again, there's going to be a lot of differences here. A ton. Wouldn't say it's bold because again, it's so volatile. It could end up any way. Who knows? But let's start at the top here. This is really the kind of safest and easiest tier to rank here is Bijan, Breece, and Gibbs. You've got the three guys here that are all in the discussion, all have an argument to be the running back one in dynasty. Bijan Robinson, because as a rookie, he was very good in a very bad situation where he was not used correctly. Now going to get a better situation. Not only that, getting a better quarterback, opening the field for him, making him even more of a weapon in the receiving game, and hopefully the touchdowns go up this year as well. But Bijan is still the best running back probably in the entire NFL. I'd say him and Breece, and when Chubb was healthy, and Christian McCaffrey, like in terms of talent, in terms of skill, Bijan's up there. And so he's got to be up here. And then we've got Breece Hall. Breece Hall last year coming off a torn ACL was the running back 2 in fantasy football. In PPR leagues, that's ridiculous. He also should be getting an upgrade in his offense since you've got Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball instead of Zach Wilson. Anybody's an upgrade over that? Literally anyone. So with that, we expect Breece to come out and be productive this year as well. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, who stepped in as a rookie and was also a top 12 dynasty running back and fantasy running back in scoring. And Jahmyr Gibbs playing on one of the highest powered offenses in the league with the Detroit Lions, playing with Samuel Porter, playing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, playing with Jared Goff. And so you look at these three guys and it's really pick your favorite. Most of the time now you see Bijan going there because of the situation now he finds himself in with Kirk Cousins being the quarterback in Atlanta. But same tier, pick your favorite. We won't fault you either way. But honestly, I wouldn't make an argument to drop any of these guys down this year. I think they're all three even. I think it's,
they're all going relatively in the same
range
range too. I think the only guy that you see not consistently, but sometimes fall is like Breece towards the end of the second. But that's not enough for us to have him a tier below Bijan and Gibbs. With the amount of times that we've seen Breece go in the middle or even early second.
Sure.
So
yeah. All right. And the B tier, or sorry, the A tier.
The A tier, we've got CMC and Jonathan Taylor in this tier. Christian McCaffrey. What do we have to say about Christian McCaffrey? He's 27, 28 years old. Do you really care? Do I really care when he's single-handedly winning you your leagues in fantasy and in dynasty? I really don't care. I'm not going to predict the fall off. I'm not going to predict injury. He's in a great situation, has been since he went to San Francisco, and he scored 25 points per game last year. I'll adjust my rankings when he doesn't do that again. Until then, I'm ranking him up here because that's where he belongs. Jonathan Taylor, look, he's one of the few running backs that isn't on a rookie deal that has long-term contract insulation. I'm super optimistic about what he's going to be doing over the next couple of years alongside Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman and Josh Downs in the receiving game. Like they have so many weapons offensively at this point that a lot of heat is going to be taken off of him, even more than last year when he was dealing with a bunch of like really weird injuries that just aren't going to happen again. It was like a thumb, and then it was obviously the ankle at the beginning that he was rehabbing from the offseason surgery, and then the whole contractitis,
yeah.
It was just weird. But when he was at his best last year, he looked like old vintage Jonathan Taylor, and we expect him to be a full go 100% this year quite easily. And Anthony Richardson and his mobility is going to help with that big time, just with his overall production, in my opinion.
Running back is one of the hardest positions to gauge in a dynasty fantasy football, and a good way that we do that, and what I feel really comfortable with the advice we're giving out this year is on our team blueprints, which again is a comprehensive plan for your dynasty team. You've got a 3-year plan to get your dynasty team to win your league. That is the number one goal of playing dynasty. So you get all kinds of tools, but ultimately comprehensive analysis of your team and breaking it down in the team blueprint. So you get one of those when you sign up, flockfantasy.com/domain, and you use code domain, you choose the Mother Flocker tier, you get a team blueprint, and it looks very pretty, obviously, and we will do one of these for you. You get one-on-one advice, you get the trade calculator, you get our rankings, you get the team and league review tool that we have that we just launched. So a lot to be had. But again, join up today. Send Nathan and I a message and say, what's up? Let's chat about your team. Let's chat about where you want to go with your team, and let's get a team blueprint done for you today. We'd love for you to join us. Flockfantasy.com/domain Mother Flocker tier. All right, let's get back to it. All right, now I get thrown into the fryer here a little bit because this is where it gets nuts. Because in the B tier, we're going to start with Saquon Barkley as our running back.
How dare you?
Because Saquon Barkley is on one of the best deals in football. He's in the best situation of his career in one of the best offenses in the NFL, playing along Jalen Hurts, a dual threat quarterback that will allow him to have a lot of flexibility running the ball. If Saquon stays healthy, I mean, there's no reason to believe he won't be a top 6 running back. You've seen worse running backs be productive in that Philly offense, and Saquon is very, very
Miles
good.
Sanders.
Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders went from the big name on the street in the free agent market to literally like almost no one knows his name. It's crazy.
Okay. And this is where you may disagree with us. And frankly, we're very confident in this. And this is going to be having Jonathan Brooks here at the running back 7 in this tier. And with Jonathan Brooks, you may be looking at him and say, what is the argument for taking him over Devon Achane, who's also in this tier, and Rachaad White, who's also in this tier? I mean, look at the prospects and look at the players that Devon Achane and Rachaad White turned out to be, and those are guys that were not drafted in the second round of the NFL draft. The Panthers traded up to get Jonathan Brooks and actually paid a price to move up and get him, right? And got second round draft capital installation. That's what you're talking about. That's where Breece went, right? Talking about that's where Jonathan Taylor went, okay? Achane went lower than 2. Rachaad White went lower than 2. Cook, lower than 2. ETN was the end of the first, right? Mm-hmm. Kyron Williams, later than 2. I mean, he has better draft capital than almost every running back up here. Not to mention, Jonathan Brooks is extremely talented, and he wouldn't have come out on a torn ACL at the end of the season and got drafted in the second round if that wasn't true. He also possesses that great receiving upside that we like to see in our prospects and in our fantasy and dynasty running backs in PPR leagues. And so with Jonathan Brooks, he's on his rookie deal. He's on his the first year of his rookie deal. He's going to a situation that the offense is going to be much improved, but I think he's safer than Achane. He's a better prospect than Achane was. Yeah. He is a better prospect. He's a better prospect than Rachaad White. He profiles better than those two dudes. Yeah. Undoubtedly, he's a year earlier, and he's got the backfield all to himself.
Yeah, and those two, Achane and Rachaad, who are after him in the same tier, were drafted in crowded running back rooms. Running backs who were starting ahead of them their rookie seasons, and look where they've ended up, and look what they did their rookie season. Like, Brooks is absolutely, like, he's the only one there. Don't say Chuba. Don't say Chuba, and don't say Miles Sanders. Like Jonathan Brooks is going to get every relevant carrying opportunity.
And don't put all these guys up on the screen, but in terms of talent, I'm more comfortable with Jonathan Brooks than Achane, Rachaad White, James Cook, Travis Etienne, Kyron Williams, Pacheco, Kenneth Walker, Trey Benson, Tony Pollard, all of them. Talent-wise, I mean, guys, Jonathan Brooks is a great prospect, a great NFL talent. We'll die on that hill. We'll take our hot take here. Devon Achane, same tier. So if you want to take Achane, that's fine. Again, these are our rankings. It's not market value. So obviously in a draft, you're taking Achane over Brooks all day because they're going 2 rounds apart. And so you're definitely, if you're taking anything away from these rankings from like a do this standpoint, it's down tier from Achane to Brooks plus. That's the move, right? Down tier from Achane to Rachaad White plus. Right? That's what you should be taking away, not draft Brooks over Achane. Like, that's, again, market value does not allow you to do that. But Devon Achane, really, really productive. In fact, the most efficient rookie running back season we've ever seen. Explosive, just unbelievable production when he was on the field. And that is an asterisk that we do have to talk about, is when he was on the field, because he does need to stay healthy. And also there is the fact that he is sharing a running back room with Raheem Mostert, with Jeff Wilson, and now with Jalen Wright, a guy that they moved up to grab in the NFL draft, another speedy dude. Look, Devon Achane, I have no doubt he could be productive. I actually think he's a little bit of a buy in Dynasty, just a little bit. Like, I like his value enough to draft him where he's going in the 5th round. But that being said, there are some questions with Devon Achane because it's such a crowded running back room there, and also because he does need to stay healthy, and also because his efficiency is going to drop off. So we'll see. Rachaad White is another guy that from a market value standpoint is going lower in our rankings, or lower in market value rankings than he is in our rankings. We have him ranked up here in this tier because we genuinely think that Rachaad White is criminally underrated in Dynasty right now. He was the running back 4 last year. He has a super duper high floor. Like, his minimum, I think he was in single digits like only 3 or 4 games because of the receiving upside that he possesses. And really, they brought in Bucky Irving, and we touched on this in the buys video, but we're not worried about Bucky Irving in terms of stealing the workload of Rachaad White. Rachaad White's still going to produce. He's in an offense that's not going to be exactly the same, but the goal of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is to kind of maintain that offensive scheme. They've said it. They've made it very clear. And with the same weapons coming back, Rachaad White is, again, he's 24, right? Or 23 or 24?
He's 24.
He's 24. He's
maybe even 25. He was on the older side when he came into the league.
He's got 2 years left on his deal. I would be surprised if he's 25. We're going to find out.
25?
25.
There
Wow.
you go.
25. He's still got 2 years on his rookie deal, though. So, I mean, again, you're talking about a guy last year that had 70 targets and 64 of those were receptions for 550 yards and 3 touchdowns. We think Rachaad White's underrated. He's one of the safest, in our opinion, running backs to own, high floor
Very
guys
safe.
to own in Dynasty. And so, I think he has less questions than the guys in this next year that Nathan's going to talk about now.
Yeah, this next tier, please don't give us crap for that. I'm just going to give it to you straight. It's James Cook, Travis Etienne, and Kyron Williams
Nathan.
in this tier. I know you're losing your mind right now because of how low we have Travis Etienne compared to consensus. I mean, you see Etienne go as high as running back 5 or 6. We have Etienne all the way down at running back 11 here in our rankings. We have no shame for that whatsoever.
Okay.
I'm not starting with Etienne, though. I'm starting with James Cook.
Yeah.
We have James Cook over Travis Etienne because, honestly, with his situation, because of his consistent receiving upside and what he demonstrated last year, and Buffalo supposedly transitioning to a primary 12 personnel offense, that is going to bode well for the running backs in that offense, and that means James Cook will probably get a decent amount of volume next year, just like he did last year. And we know what he's capable of doing in the receiving game. He's one of those guys that's just going to probably last a while in the NFL. And I like that about him. He has a pretty safe floor, in my opinion, just because of the receiving capability for the foreseeable future. Travis Etienne, on the other hand, is going into the 4th year of his rookie deal when Doug Peterson has literally come out and already said that he's going to get less opportunity because we already knew this. Less is more with Travis Etienne. Going into last year, we didn't expect him to get the volume that he got. He got a lot more than we ever saw coming because of the history of Doug Peterson and how he runs running backs in his offense. But with Etienne last season, he did the same thing that he did the year before. He had a really good stretch of hyper-production with a ton of touchdowns, and then he stopped getting those touchdowns at the end of the season, and he stopped scoring you elite-level fantasy points. Okay. He actually was very, very inconsistent towards the end of the year and had not a ton of high-ceiling games at all.
Okay.
We are not big Travis Etienne truthers, and it is really going to be because of his price. What long-term security do you have with Etienne past this year? You don't.
You want to, can I grill you a little bit here?
Sure.
All right. I want to hear what you say. All right. Rachaad White, 25 years old, 6'0", 214. Travis Etienne, 25 years old, 5'10", 215 pounds. Rachaad White last year had 70 targets. Last year, Travis Etienne had 73 targets, 64 receptions, 58 receptions. But the difference was Travis Etienne was the PPR running back 3 versus the PPR running back 4. Obviously, he had 11 touchdowns versus 6. And so the obvious answer to the first part of this is, the floor is much higher with Rachaad White because of his receiving upside and because he's less touchdown dependent.
Yeah, it's the touchdown dependence
really,
for us. It's a big deal.
Why would somebody look at that and say, I should value Rachaad White a tier above Travis Etienne? They're literally almost identical outside of 1 year on their contract.
Because do you, with the offensive situation, trust Rachaad White to get more volume next year than Travis Etienne based on their relative success on their offenses?
I mean, they had the same amount of targets last year. Travis Etienne had more targets.
I know, but I'm saying looking ahead to the next years based on what the coaches have literally said, Rachaad White is going to get more consistent opportunity in the red zone and with his receiving upside than Travis Etienne, because the more volume that Etienne got, not only was he less efficient, but he did become touchdown dependent compared to Rachaad White, who was not. Even though Rachaad White was inefficient as a runner, I trust him to be more consistent across the board more than I do with Etienne. Etienne has never proven to be consistent ever.
I mean,
the whole second half of the season, anytime he wasn't scoring a touchdown, he was under 10 points per game.
That's true. The touchdowns were only 12-9 though. So I would argue, that's only 25% more or less dependent on
that's
touchdowns.
A big percentage.
I guess
25%.
I guess the 25% wouldn't be the touchdown dependency number because you're doing that in the ratio to their total points scored. So that's not the actual number. 25% less touchdowns is what I'm saying. That doesn't seem it's not a huge
The
decrease.
extra year is a big deal as well to me because when you look at running backs and their market value after or going into the 4th year of the rookie deal, people start viewing them as those old veterans and they're worried about their long-term situation. Do you think Travis Etienne is guaranteed a starting role in 2025?
No, I don't think guaranteed.
I don't think so either.
No.
And with that
I wouldn't
doubt,
say anything's guaranteed.
With that doubt in mind, I'd rather just go with the safety of Rachaad White.
Well, and I think the other good argument against this is you mentioned that his games without a touchdown. Rachaad White in his games without a touchdown had 19 points, 17 points, 27 points, 17 points, 15 points, all without a touchdown in those games. 21 points.
Yeah, and you want to hear Etienne's?
Yeah, I do.
13, 6, 9, nice. 12, 8, 6, 10, 17 was a one good game, and then 6.
So there's a pretty clear difference there. Like
huge.
I like Rachaad White's floor without a touchdown.
Exactly.
So that's
his floor is better.
So there you go. I don't know what to think of ETN. I'm kind of more or less just like, yeah, whatever. Like rank him low, rank him high.
I think the 1 year difference makes a big deal for me, just in the way that I view him and his market value, because a lot of this is anticipating market value. And if you're looking for safety long term and a guy who has 2 to 3 years of a guaranteed situation, which results in the most insulation that you're going to get from a running back, ETN doesn't have that, and Rachaad White does.
And in terms of arguing for Brooks over ETN, Brooks has 4 years on his deal. ETN has 1. So that's a huge difference in Dynasty.
Right.
So talk about Kyron.
Yeah, Kyron, I think this one is pretty clear cut and right. I don't think we're going to get a lot of fight on this. Kyron Williams was the running back 2 overall in points per game last year, 22 points per game behind Christian McCaffrey only. You have to respect that, and I think people are continuing to respect that, even after Blake Corum was taken day 2 in the NFL draft. But guess what? Blake Corum was drafted day 2 in the NFL draft. He will get his own in that offense at some point. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on Blake Corum to be super hyper-productive his first year. I mean, see Kendry Miller last year, who was taken in the 3rd round. Not everyone expected him to go that high, but he gets taken day 2. Everyone expects him to get some opportunity his rookie year, and he doesn't really, because New Orleans was patient.
Sure.
I don't expect Sean McVay to be impatient. Is it really going to benefit him to just throw Corum into the fire when Kyron Williams is running like a maniac? Kyron Williams is expendable. He can run him as long as he wants until he goes down, and then Corum can get opportunity. That might not be his first year. So Kyron Williams could be as productive his second year as he was his first year of hyperproduction with 22 points per game. But you obviously have to take into account the fact that his long-term value is just not as insulated as any of the guys that are being ranked above him.
Yeah, so let's move down to the next tier here, and we're going to start with Isaiah Pacheco. This is a guy that when I looked at these rankings, I first was like, I actually had him a tier above, and Nathan was like, yeah, let's move him down a little bit. And it was because he was the running back 15 last year in PPR leagues, which is a good point. Looking at his points per game, he was 15.3 points per game among running backs. That's 14th. So again, even the points per game metric doesn't put him into that running back 1 category. And so naturally, we have him ranked outside of the running back 1s in Dynasty as well. But he was a guy last year that, although he really didn't have as much receiving upside as we'd like to see, only 49 targets, 44 of those receptions, and only 2 touchdowns there, 244 yards. His floor was pretty high. In the games that he did play actual snaps in, his floor was 6-7 points, and he really only hit single digits in those games. 1, 2, 3, 4 of those games. So like, he had a pretty high floor for a guy that honestly didn't have a ton of receiving upside. And you also saw games 29 points, 21 points, 25 points, 15 points, 24 points. And so the upside there in that offense, obviously any running back that's getting 65% of the snaps in the Kansas City Chiefs offense is going to have some offensive upside. And so Isaiah Pacheco, he does have 2 years left on his deal. He's 25 years old now. And again, running back 15 last year. He's a guy right now that you're getting fairly cheap still. And so we like him at the beginning of this year ahead of Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, another very polarizing figure in Dynasty Fantasy Football in terms of running backs, because Kenneth Walker,
his ceiling's much higher than Pacheco, that's for sure.
You could say that, but everybody's like, I'll say Kenneth Walker hasn't done much. People are like, what do you mean he hasn't done much? I'm like, he's finished as running back 18 and 19. Put that up, Luke. And look, I like Kenneth Walker. I like Kenneth Walker, but you have to admit, in his first 2 years in terms of fantasy football, I don't care about 199 and 202 points from a guy we're drafting in the 5th, 6th round. That's just not something I'm chasing. Again, Rachaad White is going around or after Kenneth Walker, and you can get him, and he actually has a season of 270 points, 70 points higher than any season Kenneth Walker has had. And so with Kenneth Walker, yes, I like him. Yes, he's the running back 1. Yes, he's in a good offense. Yes, he's a good prospect. Yes, he got 2nd round draft capital. All of it is true. I like Kenneth Walker. But again, what's Kenneth Walker's floor? 2 points, 2 points, 9 points, 6 points. So his floor is a lot lower. 35 and 37 targets in his first 2 years. So you're not seeing that receiving upside you'd like to see. And honestly, look, from an NFL standpoint, Kenneth Walker's a great running back, but he's also pretty big play dependent. I mean, he's one of those guys that has a very high breakaway run rate. And because of that, you see Kenneth Walker in the games where he doesn't get big plays, a lot of times he's not really scoring a lot of fantasy points. I think from an NFL running back perspective, him and Charbonnet fit really well together in the sense that Kenneth Walker has almost no receiving upside and is very good on the ground. And Charbonnet is less breakaway speed, stuff like that, but is really good in the receiving and blocking game. And so they're both good and they work great for the Seahawks. But in terms of fantasy, it kind of kills each other's value because really you see Kenneth Walker, he had 9 and 8 touchdowns his first 2 years. You see him getting the red zone work. And with Charbonnet is a guy that is in his rookie year, at least when you're looking at, he was used 40 targets. That's more than Kenneth Walker's ever had in a season. But again, 1 touchdown total. So you're really taking the 2 biggest influencers of fantasy points and finishes in fantasy, and you're splitting them up between the 2 guys, and it's really capping the ceiling of both of them. And so because you could make the argument that, Bofa. You could make the argument that Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet is going to have a breakout year and take some of Kenneth Walker's workload this year. A lot of people think that because it's a new coaching regime. Yep. And again, I want to see it from Kenneth Walker before we move him higher on this list. But that said, he's in the top 15 of our running backs, right? Let's go to Trey Benson. Trey Benson is another guy that got day 2 draft capital as a running back this year, went to the Arizona Cardinals. He's only 20 years old. He's very clearly, James Conner's replacement. I think he's going to split with James Conner this year. I think James Conner is still very good. You've seen James Conner get more efficient as his career's gone on, which is incredible. Wild. So I don't think James Conner is dead. And so from an immediate standpoint, I don't think so. But I think by the time Trey Benson takes over, he's going to have 3 years left as a bell cow workload because he is a bell cow guy. I mean, he's 6'1", 223. He's got good speed as well. Obviously some injury questions, but in terms of the skill and speed and size, I mean, Trey Benson is a guy who could get all 3 down workload and produce as a dynasty running back in that manner. So with that being said, a year from now, when James Conner's contract's up and they probably just say bye-bye, I think they will, I would imagine Trey Benson is going to be a guy that for the next 3 years in Dynasty, we play in 3-year windows, you're very happy to have on your team. So Trey Benson, lots of talent, good draft capital. He's got 4 years left on his rookie deal, like that a lot. And so we'll take him here in this D tier as well.
Yeah, and someone else we've been thrilled to have on our team recently because of his current price is Tony Pollard, heading up the F tier here. And man, we always say how the turns table, and they really have with Tony Pollard, and it's all about the price. It was never a question how talented Tony Pollard was or wasn't in the NFL for us. We just avoided the vacated volume fallacy in Dallas, and it paid off. We were right. And now people are super low on Tony Pollard after he just had a 1,300-yard season and was a high-end running back too, and he's going as low as the 11th or 12th round in Dynasty startups right now on a 3-year deal, 2 years guaranteed.
All about expectations.
And he's splitting a backfield. That's where he's at his best. That's when he's most efficient. Playing with a guy who isn't going to vulture as many touchdowns as Zeke Elliott did in his prime.
No, he won't.
Dude, Pollard could be more productive than he was last year. I'm serious. I'm not kidding. And I get why his price decreased because his value was way overinflated and people thought his production would be way higher than it ever actually was going to be. Now he's being valued accordingly, but it's too low. So we're very high on Tony Pollard. We're calling our shot with him, and we think that he should be valued very close to the guys like Benson, Kenneth Walker, and Pacheco because of his contract insulation. It's a very locked-in situation for the foreseeable future. And I've kind of grown on the duo of Pollard and Tajay in that backfield more than I did when I originally saw it. It wasn't ideal, but it's growing on me for sure. DeAndre Swift is also going to be in this tier. Same sort of situation as Pollard. He has contract insulation, and while he hasn't ever been what people thought he could have been earlier in his career on Detroit, I still am very optimistic with what he could do in the Bears offense. No, he's not playing behind Philadelphia's offensive line. And that's really unfortunate because that was why a lot of his production was what it was last year, just like Miles Sanders 2 years ago in Philadelphia. He definitely reaped the benefits of the best offensive line in the NFL. Now he's going to reap the benefits of playing alongside Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, who's going to take a lot of heat, a lot of pressure off of DeAndre Swift, and defenses won't be focusing on him as much as Caleb Williams in the passing game. DeAndre Swift can make a dent in the passing game as well. I mean, that's his bread and butter. That's what he's best at. It's not like he has the best vision. He actually has some pretty terrible vision as a runner. He just likes bouncing things outside. So I'm hoping that he has some really high upside as a receiver in this offense in Chicago. I'm pretty optimistic and super pumped to see what he does on a pretty solid contract. Mm-hmm. Joe Mixon also going to be in this tier. I'm a bit lower on Joe Mixon than Avery is. Avery really advocated hard for Mixon to be in this tier. I understand it. I really do. And Mixon was on the higher, he was on the higher receiving end of those 3-year deal, 2-year guaranteed running back deals that kind of went all over the place this year. And
$3-year, $27
million, which was, I think, $6 million less than what Saquon Barkley got, which is pretty crazy. Like I'm of the opinion that Mixon is on a downward trend from a production and efficiency perspective. But when you look at a contract like that and the security that brings, you have to respect it in what is already a pretty solid offense. He could get some real nice red zone opportunity there. And I think it's more safe to say that Mixon could be a low end producing running back one this year than to say that every single one of those receivers, Diggs, Collins, and Dell, are going to be top 24 options.
Yeah, I think I
seriously.
Agree with that.
So David Montgomery also going to be in this tier. He's going to be the perpetual running back 2 in Detroit. But we know what the perpetual running back 2 in Detroit is, and that's a touchdown hog, and he's probably going to get another 10 plus this year. You know what you're getting from David Montgomery. He's going to be a running back 2. Alvin Kamara at the tail end of this tier. I understand the risk with him. I understand that Kendry Miller might be breathing down his neck, but New Orleans can't get rid of Kamara anytime soon because there's so much dead cap tied to his contract. They either have to pay it or they have to pay more if they cut him. So, or I think they have to pay just as much if they cut him, like because they kept kicking the can down the road. So Kamara got more efficient last year compared to previous seasons. When everyone thought that he was aging out, we tried to tell you last year to buy the dip, and if you did, it paid off because Kamara maintained his value, and I think he even increased a little bit.
I mean,
so,
he had a ridiculous amount of targets last year too.
Yeah,
so.
We're not expecting Kamara to really slow down that much. If he's not as productive as he was last year, that's fine. He'll still be a running back 2.
Let's drop down to the next tier here and start with Tyjae Spears. A lot of people would probably advocate for Tyjae to be higher than Tony Pollard because you see that in market value rankings. And honestly, there's really no reason to do that yet. Tyjae Spears in his rookie year was the running back 34. He had 100 attempts, but he had only had 453 yards, which is good efficiency, which is what you have when you get limited attempts. But and 70 targets, so you love to see that. But the reason he was only running back 34 is because a lot of times when you talk about these running backs and their production, it's touchdowns that drive their value. It's very similar to Zach Charbonnet here. Like Zach Charbonnet got a lot of targets last year in that offense, but he had almost no touchdowns. And so you're talking about 3 total touchdowns last year for Tyjae Spears and a guy they brought in, Tony Pollard, who will be the guy that gets the touchdowns in that offense. And so again, that's kind of why we leaned Pollard, because not only is he probably going to get the touchdowns, he's probably going to get a fair amount of receiving upside compared to Tyjae too.
Well, yeah, and everyone looks at the age and like, well, Spears is younger, he's the new young gun, and Pollard's kind of the old guy that they brought in. They are more invested in Pollard than they are in Tyjae Spears. They are monetarily invested in Tony Pollard.
Yeah, you're talking about the difference between a big contract for a second contract for a running back, which is a risky thing, and a 3rd round pick.
Tyjae Spears is really house money because this new coaching regime did not invest in him.
And if Pollard gets hurt, Tyjae Spears is the guy there.
Yeah.
But that being said, Tyjae's only 22, very talented. We always liked him.
We liked him as a prospect.
Loved him. Doesn't have an ACL. All the important stuff. So, I just think that Tyjae needs to prove it. But honestly, I think he's still set for a decent year this year. Let's go to Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams, in his 3 years in the NFL, running back 17, 82, and 29 in terms of his finishes. He's played 16 games last year. He was the running back 29 in PPR leagues. Look, I mean, I think there's a world this year. They obviously didn't draft a replacement for Javonte. I think there's a world this year where it's kind of his last year of relevancy. I mean, this is kind of his J.K. Dobbins career arc here, because not really because of the injuries, but just because he hasn't been productive. And I think if he's not productive
and not
this
efficient,
year,
we thought his efficiency would go up, and it just didn't.
No, in fact, his efficiency plummeted. Went from 4.4 yards per carry in his first 2 years, essentially, to 3.57 yards per carry.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was with the most carries he's ever had in his career. He had 58 targets last year. And again, you're seeing the targets and you're seeing the attempts and you're not seeing the efficiency. You're not seeing the touchdowns. And as a result, you're not seeing the fantasy points.
This is a prove it year for Javonte.
Again, there's a lot of risk with this one in particular, because if you buy into Javonte this year and then he doesn't do anything, it's going to be a sunk cost, because he's not going to get a second deal worth anything. This is the one I know I'm going to have to defend.
Yeah, because everyone at this point is like, "Where's Josh Jacobs?"
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm just I'm just going to be honest with you.
Can I read them the deal?
Yeah, well, that's going to be the first part, but they've heard it. I'm going to read them some other stuff. I'll be 100% honest with you. This is an opinionated ranking, but this is our channel. It's our opinion. I think Josh Jacobs is the number 1 biggest sell in Dynasty Fantasy Football, and it's not close for me. There is not a player I'd rather not have on my team than Josh Jacobs. And that is me being honest. Like, I think about this daily. Like, it kind of lives rent free in my head. But let's look at what Josh Jacobs did last year. It's Josh Jacobs. He's 26 years old. This will be his 6th year in the league. Obviously, coming off of a 22 season where he had 340 attempts and he had 12 touchdowns, and he was the running back 3. Okay, and then we're looking at last year where he played 13 games. He had 233 attempts. He had 3.4 yards per carry and only 6 touchdowns. When you saw the touchdowns get cut in half, you saw his Production get cut in about half. Go figure. And honestly, he was in PPR leagues, he was the running back 28 last year. But even if you go to points per game for the games he was healthy, he was the running back 18. Josh, and it's not because of this. You can say the situation all you want, but the fact of the matter is, Josh Jacobs last year was first in opportunity share. He was 11th in weighted opportunities. He was 11th in carries, and the dude was 24th in the league in rushing yards, 19th in receiving yards, and 58th in the league in fantasy points per opportunity. And yes, part of that was because the opportunity side of things was really driving that number down, but it doesn't matter because Josh Jacobs, we've really seen him be inefficient for most of his career. The reason that, I wouldn't say most of his career, but I would say even in 21-22, where he was able to finish as a running back one, you saw him mostly be inefficient on the ground, but it was saved by the touchdowns. And now, I honestly, number one, with the injuries that Josh Jacobs has been facing the last couple of years, and number two, with the lack of efficiency. I mentioned some of the efficiency metrics there, but 50th in yards per touch, 63rd in true yards per carry, 53rd in juke rates, 48th in breakaway run rate. 25th in yards created, 49th in yards created per touch. Every efficiency metric you look at down the line with Josh Jacobs shows that he's not a good running back. At one point he was a very good fantasy running back. I don't see it this year. Again, 18th in points per game last year. I expect him to be around that this year, and he's going 6th, 7th round in dynasty drafts. And his contract, everybody will point to his contract.
Everyone sees 4 years, $48 million. That's the biggest running back contract in the market. You want to take a guess at how much is guaranteed? $12.5 million all up front year one. There's an out after this year going into 2025. If they decide for some reason to pick it up, they owe him another $9 million. If they decide to cut him the next year, the dead cap is $6 million, which is less than half of what they'd owe him if they had to pay him $14 million in 2026.
It's not that good. Look, Green Bay could easily, and what's going to happen, in our opinion, is they could easily be like, oh man, Marshawn Lloyd's better.
Yeah, and all y'all people that think you're amazing like prospect evaluators, you know that 2025 is a very good running back class for rookies.
It's true.
This is a placeholder year. I would call my shot and say this is a placeholder year for Green Bay at the running back position. They're just paying what they can for Josh Jacobs, take the out, then go draft a running back.
Look, almost every running back that got signed going on their second deal got an out after year two. Josh Jacobs didn't. There's a reason the Packers did this with a 1 year out.
Yep.
Is a year contract, guys. The dead cap enough to prevent them from dropping him after 1 year or cutting him?
Maybe the dead cap is $9 million in 2025 compared to them owing him $11 million.
So they'd save $2 million, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I think Josh Jacobs is a huge sell. I'm not rostering him on my dynasty teams. Derrick Henry is a guy I think is going to be a top 15 running back again in production this year. In his last, I don't know, running back 15, running back 5, running back 3, running back 21. He only played half his games that year. Running back 4 and running back 8. I don't think he's dead. And also the Ravens have said they're not going to cap his workload. I think he's going to produce. If I had to bet, I bet he's an RB1 this year. So that makes him a really good value for contending teams. He's somebody that I'm going to be rostering a lot. He's pretty durable for the most part. I like him a lot as a contending piece. You obviously have to take into account that he has a million, trillion, bajillion carries in his career, and he's 30 years old.
Doesn't matter.
But again, he's a unicorn, and we're not going to try to predict the age cliff for a unicorn like Derrick Henry.
Right.
Ramondre Stevenson, he was running back 7 in 2022, and then running back 35 last year.
Don't sleep on Ramondre this year. He could be a really good fantasy pick too.
Yeah, and he's going to lead that backfield. You're going to see him potentially get a little bit more receiving game usage like he did in 2022 where he had 88 targets. That's what you want to see. Again, he had such a high floor in that year. So we're hoping for that.
The only worry there is Gibson.
Yes, that's true. And naturally, because we have Josh Jacobs so low, he's going to be in the same tier as Marshawn Lloyd, who was the Packers' third round pick.
Third round pick.
Yep. Good draft capital, good team investment, good skill set, great receiving upside.
Some of the best receiving upside that we saw in this class this year.
Look, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Josh Jacobs, if I had to guess, in 2 years, I don't think any of those guys are going to be on that team anymore.
Nope.
I think they're all three going to be gone. I think Marshawn Lloyd's going to be there, and I think he's going to have...
Did you say Aaron Jones?
Oh, sorry. No. A.J. Dillon, Josh Jacobs, and who is the third guy? I don't even
Probably some no name.
A.J. Dillon.
Emmanuel Wilson?
I don't know who I'm thinking of. Not Aaron Jones, who was on the Vikings.
Marshawn Lloyd.
Anyways, the point stands. Yeah. But
and our final tier, the H tier, I'm just going to list them off to you here. Zach Moss, who is on another 2-year deal with the, I think he has an out after year one, kind of a 1-year rental sort of guy who showed a lot of productivity in Indy. He's now in Cincinnati replacing Joe Mixon. We are not playing the vacated volume fallacy here because Zach Moss has actually proven that he can be productive and efficient. Yes, in smaller smaller samples because he's never been able to string together an entire 17-game stretch of hyper production. That's why he's so far down this list with a contract in Cincinnati. Granted, it's a good situation. You can get some good points out of him this year for a stretch. Singletary, same thing, but he got paid quite a bit, and he is, I mean, by default, going to be the running back one there unless Tyron Tracy blows the socks off everyone. Blake Corum at the end of this, or in the middle of this tier, again, kind of like I said earlier, not expecting Blake Corum to really do a ton this season. Maybe towards the end of the year, he starts getting more and more opportunity. Maybe Kyron Williams gets banged up. He comes in, he's super productive. I don't really know. He got day 2 draft capital. He's going to get an opportunity at some point. If not this year, it will be in 2025. Jalen Wright, crowded running back room. Raheem Mostert's 32. He decided to get 1 million touchdowns last year. I don't expect him to do the same thing. I expect Devon Achane to, be pretty solid again, but he got injured on 3 different occasions last year, and it was the same thing. Jalen Wright, very speedy, absolutely fits that offense. It's a track star team. So I'm excited to see what he can do within the next couple of years as well. It's just a crowded running back room. So really, where's the opportunity going to be? And I care where on the field it's going to be. Is it going to be in the red zone or between the 20s? If it's in the red zone, I'm a lot more interested than if it's just at the 50-yard line. Kendre Miller, going to be in here as well. He's going to take over Kamara at some point, and that's all I'm going to say about that because he'll increase in value regardless. Brian Robinson, you know what you're getting out of him. Low-end running back too.
Yep.
And he outproduced expectations last year. It's not happening again. Nick Chubb, coming off an injury. We know what the risk is there, but he's competing with Jerome Ford. So once he comes back healthy, I think he's going to be the guy. He won't be what he was previously, most likely, but we're not ranking him like we're expecting that. Zach Charbonnet, I did throw in at the end of this tier because we have a bunch of replacement running backs here at day 2 draft capital. Charbonnet is kind of one of those guys where he could... There is an avenue, a route for him to usurp Kenneth Walker if he can stay healthy, stay on the field, which Kenneth Walker has struggled to do, and can prove to be, a better, more consistent runner because Walker really is not that.
Yeah. Where is Zamir White on this list? He's not on this list. And again,
how dare you?
You are welcome to disagree with any of this. It's running back. If you're like, I would have every single guy in a different tier on this, I'd probably be like, all right. I mean, like, I don't know. We don't know. This was so hard to rank. And honestly, your opinion is just as valid as ours in running back rankings because nobody can correctly predict this stuff. But we did our best, and we also had a long video. So sorry for the long video, but do us a huge favor. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe. And like I said, head over to flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain, choose another Flocker tier, get a team blueprint, get the team review tool, get the trade calculator, get the rankings, get our one-on-one advice, get our Discord community, get exclusive articles and videos, all of it. Flockfantasy.com/domain. Links in the description if you guys would like to join today. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you later.